later in sport.
Main Street was transformed into a guard of honour, a heartfelt goodbye from his mother and longtime girlfriend. Tony Jones reports.
Although accustomed to invasions from the city, Sorrento has never had to deal with anything quite like this, an overwhelming sense of grief. John McCarthy might not have been a champion footballer, but the calibre of those who came to mourn him said just one thing: he was a champion bloke. Few knew that better than the McCarthy family and the girl of his dreams, Danny Smorelli, his childhood sweetheart, now with a heart so broken it might never fully heal. Danny, though, put her grief on pause just long enough to speak of her John. So too his mother, Kath.
Shane and I went to nearly every one of John's games, as he hadn't been able to come home for a long time. And the last few months, he said he couldn't wait to come home.
The service was beamed direct to Port Adelaide's Alberton Oval, where more than 2,000 fans mourned together.
And you'd always say, yeah, fine, mate. What about you?
McCarthy had at least allowed South Australian and Victorian football fans to find common ground, perhaps a legacy in itself. In Sorrento, all AFL clubs were represented, none more so than Collingwood. Players, coaches and administrators bussed in to farewell the young man who had made such an impression in his 4 years at the club. For McCarthy, they walked solemnly, side by side. You can be delisted as a player, but never as a mate. The Port boys were also there. Among the players, those who'd been with McCarthy on that trip to Las Vegas. So many questions still to be answered about that night on the Strip, but this wasn't the time to consider them. This was about recalling the good times, and in John McCarthy, those times were plentiful.
As a family, we have no regrets, for we could not have loved him more. There were no handshakes in our family, only hugs, kisses and love.
Kath McCarthy showed remarkable courage, speaking of the Johnny many of us simply didn't know. She knew him not as a footballer first, but as a son forever.
Our Johnny boy is one of the most extraordinary human beings we have been privileged to know.
In John McCarthy there were flaws, but they were few.
For he was a very special, a very spiritual boy, whom we recently heard prayed for his family every night and everyone he loved to keep them safe.
Today, the prayers were for John. Following the service, the most moving yet magnificent of farewells. Mourners flowed from the church and a giant outdoor marquee onto the main street, forming a guard of honour. A ripple of applause, but for the most part, just quiet reflection. Friends with family, footballers with fans, as one saying goodbye. If John McCarthy loved the big stage, he would have loved this. It was his sort of a day, a sunny day in Sorrento, and Sorrento had silently stopped for him. Tony Jones, 9 News.